Hey guys, welcome back to 3 Overwatch. The Overwatch League is still live. And we have, I think, a pretty good match coming up. Philadelphia Fusion, Shanghai Dragons. Surely this will be a 3-0. Let's kick it off with the Shanghai Dragons, though, who have, since in the Midseason Madness qualifiers, have only played Void so far. Machek, where is Fate?
Where is Fate? That's the question. Where's the calls? Where's the comms? Where's the main tank? And it's so weird, Lemon, that in some places, especially in North America, we are seeing so much Wrecking Ball, and Shanghai Dragons are finally addressing their 0-6 record and thinking something's got to change. We got to bring in the big boy Fate. I hope we get to see quite a bit of Wrecking Ball today, because Chengdu have done really well with it. We've seen teams over in North America do really well with it as well. And Shanghai, as amazing as Void is, MVP tier off-tank, he simply has not had a great track record thus far in Midseason Madness.
Yeah, I mean, the Shanghai Dragons, I hadn't watched the Midseason Madness qualifiers in APAC, just, focusing a lot on North America, and I was like, man, I just can't wait to see, I woke up from my coma and I was like, I can't wait to see the Shanghai Dragons dominate, and everyone's like, I got bad news for you, son. Shanghai Dragons got 99 problems, and they continue to have more. So they were running so much Void, Sigma, Doomfist, and we just hadn't seen Fate. But here he is. Maybe they can pull like a Hunters, right? Of just having Fate on the Hammond or the Winston, Flood a Genji, Lip Sojourn. That seemed to work out.
Yeah, 99 problems and 0 map wins, Lemon. On the other side, Philadelphia Fusion have a very preferable record against the Shanghai Dragons thus far in 2022. And speaking of new subs, we're seeing a little bit more of Fury as well. Belos Rhea has definitely been the tank du jour for the Philadelphia Fusion. They've been preferring a lot of Belos Rhea, and Belos Rhea has been playing a lot of different things. Winston, Wrecking Ball, Reinhardt, Roadhog. Occasionally.
Don't say it into existence.
Do not speak it into existence, but it's Fury who's going to be opening up here. We are, of course, on double push, so you'd have to assume that Colosseo is going to be the first map, as that's where Fury has seen most of his play, as both a Sigma and a Xayah, if I remember correctly. On the other side, MN3 certainly has been showing off his skills as a Sojourn, and I think that Zest is kind of like the person who, for my money, should always be in for Philadelphia Fusion. Zest just provides so much in terms of flexibility as that sort of supportive DPS who can play on their own, whether it's as a Tracer, as a Genji, as an Echo, that just can provide the off-angle pressure that really gives some space to work for either MN3 or Carpe when they're playing something that's a little bit more straight and narrow when it comes to hit scans.
Well, Zest, you gotta keep him in the lineup. He is the number one Tracer in APAC, at least when it comes to the statistics. Number one in solo kills, number one in pulse bomb kills, and number two in final blows. The only thing that I think holds Philadelphia Fusion back is their tank situation. And now that Fury's in the lineup, maybe that experience, that leadership at the front line can be great, where they usually operate Fury on push. Even just most recently, they won Colosseo against Hangzhou Spark. But Philadelphia Fusion, I'm sorry, Fusion fans, you ain't having a great time. You lost your first two matches, and you had to take Hangzhou Spark, one of the lower teams, to a Game 5 to win it. So Fusion, they look good on paper, but it's about working together on the field, not just trying to go for all these solo plays. But I feel like there's so much pressure on people like Carpe, Zest, and MN3 to go for their own solo plays if the tanks are not taking the initiative. Now that Fury's in the lineup, he has a ton of time in the Overwatch League. I'm expecting this to be a better look, but Belos Rhea should be substituted in after.
World champion of the inaugural season with the London Spitfire with a huge performance on the Diva. But, Lemon, both of these teams are currently feeling the panic and the fear, as the loser of this match is going to be in a position where it might be truly easy to fall out of contention for the Midseason Madness. If Chengdu continue their current dominant run through the Midseason Madness qualifiers, they could take out whichever one of these teams loses and likely falls into 4th place, steal away that 4th seed from APAC and knock one of these teams out of contention for Midseason Madness, which would be a heartbreaker. And have a look at that. Philadelphia have not dropped a map to Shanghai Dragons this season. Shanghai Dragons have not claimed a map in Midseason Madness yet. So despite the reputation of our reigning champions, it's statistically not looking grand right now.
But with Fate in the lineup, this is a new look for the Dragons. They've always been using Fury in the mid-season qualifiers, and now they can have a main tank to truly own this map and take the space that they need. It's going to synergize great with Fleda's Tracer, and with hopefully this real estate taken up, Lip can have all the space to operate in terms of his Sojourn at a distance. Now Fusion presenting themselves with more of a brawl comp, having the Fury Sigma shield at the front. But look, the Dragons have already made their way in the back. It's Fate and Fludda back there just doing some initial scouting, and having access to this middle of the map means that Dragons can flank at any time.
Remember that the raw healing here for Shanghai Dragons is going to be fairly low, so Fate's going to be relying a lot on the health banks as he does a little bit of rolling and trolling here. A bit of a Bane 1 impression. Just keeping Philadelphia Fusion at bay for a moment before going in on Fury.
Yeah, it's tough for Fate because all he has to do is dodge the Fix's sleeps and the accretions of Fury, and because once Fate is Discord orbit like he is most of the time, he can be bursted down quite quickly, but Fate hasn't dropped yet. Dragons have been on the flank, and Fusion are good at peeling for themselves, especially with an MN3 Ashe, who usually is subbed in to either play the Sojourn, the Ashe, the Cassidy, stuff like that. So now that he gets a coach gun, he gets some dynamites, it's going to make it difficult for Fate to engage. Now you got some free push from Fusion. Now when do Dragons want to engage?
Zest playing on the flanks for now, trying to keep Fletter at bay. Still free distance here for the side of Philadelphia Fusion. And Fury's used to kinetic grasp, so for a moment it's going to be backing off and waiting for Fate to make his move.
We're just waiting for a fight to start. It feels like Fusion are just brawling away, and Dragons haven't found their opening. You got a Nano creator invested into Zest, and this is just making all these targets so weak. Izuyaki's dead, but just couldn't get the finish on the Lee Jae-gong, and I wonder where Fixa was, where he was unable to support. I know where Fixa was. He was getting harassed by Fludda, who's throwing pulse bombs. Yeah, yeet. And Fusion, well, I don't know if they can get more than 30 meters. We'll have to see how much Fury can hold down his backline. Fixa is the target of Fludda's attention, jumping on in. Now the Transcendence is forced out by Aim God. Fusion trying to relieve some of that pressure as the Dragons are still around, and Lip is able to burst through all that healing.
The trance was there, but the DPS wasn't. Philly, they put the nano onto Zest, but I don't think they're in a great position to really do anything about that. Lee Jae-gong managed to just do-si-do around a pillar, use that physical cover to stay alive, and the rest of Philadelphia Fusion, they're so slow, Lemon, they can't focus a target with a Genji. And now both the DPS are dead again.
Yeah, Zest gone. Dragons will be able to get a lead out of this, and with the Hammond, they'll be able to get to the high ground, which is nice.
Access to the high ground here, maybe even knocking Fury off, you can get the proper roll through. And remember, when Fury loses that high ground, in a very vulnerable position.
There's the mines on top of the bridge. Fury is looking for a homie to grab Flex. The shield bashes out. Get outplayed by a Brigida. I don't know what to say, man. Lee Jae-gong, though, comes back with the rally. Dragons are all playing split from each other. It's Izuyaki and Lee Jae-gong over on pillars. Lip is kind of hanging around. He got staggered. He'll be back, though. And Fludda and Fate are taking rotations to the opposite side, the right, to pinch Fusion from multiple angles. But now it's the Nano to MN3, thinking he's popping off, but maybe it's Zest that needed it, because, you know, the whole blade and all. But Izuyaki's dead, and Fusion are down 3. MN3 is going to stall out with the Bob, and maybe think about swapping. I'm not sure what the Bob was for.
Fusion are legitimately baffling, Lemon. Like, they are a science experiment. This isn't a team. They just saw a Transcendence have a Nano and a blade and decide, no, I'm not going to nano the blade. I'm going to nano the Ashe instead. That's a decision that was made by a human being, and that's all I can say about it. Shanghai Dragons, they still have their lead here, Lemon, and control of the bot as well. For now, though, Shanghai can just stay back, troll the objective a little bit, and wait for Fate to be in a position to set up one of these fights, knocking someone off the high ground critically so that Flet can get on top of them.
Dragons have a 3-2 split right now, where it's Fludda and Fate permanently on the flank, going through the middle of the map, and Fusion are doing a way better job, especially of MN3, looking through that doorway and marking Fludda and Fate. And look how as soon as they present themselves, they're discorded, they're burned to death, and because Fate and Fludda are not in the greatest range of Izuyaki and Lee Jae-gong, the orb is getting cut off through the mid-map walls. Fate and Fludda are not getting sustained, so Fusion just have to hold their ground.
Fate here can at least control the objective. With the mines, those are going to be very difficult to cut through for the Philadelphia Fusion. They don't really have a good method of doing that, with the exception of throwing Fury's cardboard shield through the mass of them and just allowing the damage to accumulate. Lip doesn't quite connect when it comes to the railgun, but the overclock is ready to give chance after chance again.
It's a dangerous place that Lip is in now that he has the overclock too. I'm wondering how the Fate mines are going to be used. You lock the Fusion into the fight, but now the mines have been placed and it immediately claims the lives of the supports. AimGod didn't even have time to use Transcendence, and you probably needed that to keep up the tempo, especially if you're going to invest Pulse Bomb and a Grab Flux. So Fusion just not able to touch those high ground members of the Dragons, and it's the Dragons back on the barricade.
You're exactly right, Lemon, and what else is AimGod saving this Transcendence for, to be honest? Like, it's not that good against the Overclock, it won't do anything against the Pulse Bomb. At best, you can just, like, counter-trance Izayaki, but often you're going to be able to force that out by using your own Grav Flux, and Fury didn't end up getting anything out of that because he made the play without his supports. MN3 has control of the high ground as Feta and Flate, pardon me, wait alone.
I love Flate, but Fusion now throw the bomb behind the Dragons, and Lee Jingong is forced to rally, and Dragons push forward out into the open where Fusion just gets to play Duck Hunt. So what a well-placed bomb from MN3 to force these awkward positions. Dragons are now stuck in the closet, and Fusion are just gonna siege in there with a Nano Tracer of all things. So Fusion are back on the bot.
You know what, I quite like the choice of a Nano Tracer there. This allowed Zest to get very close to a Pulse Bomb, as well as meaning that Zest had additional survivability while playing in that alcove that was well out of the line of sight of both Fixer and AimGod. And that meant Fixer and AimGod could stay in safe positions and stay alive for this crucial fight here as Philadelphia Fusion continue to exacerbate their lead.
Zest, you gotta hit those, man. Fury needs you. Your country, your people need you, okay? Fury's taking so much poke, he ain't got a shield. He's just a walking Zarya at this point, and now the backline of Fusion is exposed. This is deja vu from the last fight. Guess what happened last fight? AimGod and Fixa died first, and AimGod still ain't using the Transcendence. Help him!
Well, the good news, Lemon, is that AimGod might get to use the Transcendence to counter the minefield after all, because Fate's almost got another one, and AimGod is still holding on to this. He is a hodl gang right now, diamond hands on the Shanghai Dragons might actually use an early minefield here to try and stop the contesting of the cart so that it can move forward into an advantageous position.
And what's messed up about all of this is Fusion are winning right now. They're 41 meters and 36. And finally, you have the Dragons who get a first pick. Now, will we see Fate go to the high ground? He placed the mines on the staircase, which Fusion just walk around it. And now Dragons, well, you see Fate actually peel for his backline. Zest was flanking, he kills him. Now the Dragons have had two picks, one from Flip, one from Fate, and you're just barely getting progress on this barricade. It's 2 meters away. There's the contest from the Fusion. The barricade, or the Grab Flux from Fury does a big dent into the Dragons. They do fire back with the Transcendence. Without Lee Jingong, though, Dragons are not going to do well in these later fights, and that's where the damage of the Fusion is so deadly. And throughout the Dragons having picked first blood and second blood, they still don't get the lead back.
Finally, AimGod uses the trance, gets the second one there after Izayaki's is forced out by the Gravitic Flux from Fury. And Shanghai, they invested pretty heavily in that previous fight. The Overclock's still going to be available here for Lip, and remember that Fixer has been consistently picked off first by Lip with these headshots. Maybe a little bit harder now, going up against the Brigitte to do that.
Oh, just Dragons are looking at the back line, they're pounding the front, and Lip, he does the same thing every fight. Zest, MN3, AimGod going after the dog too. Dragons, once they own the high ground, they ain't leaving it, and the Fusion have not figured out what to do. But here's the fun fact, Fusion are still winning 41 meters.
Shanghai Dragons giving him Lip. Fury has to make a decision here as to how soon he wants to try and contest this barricade, and maybe you send Zest to do it instead. A little bit of objective trolling, try and find a place for this bomb. You've got to try and remain in the lead here if you're Philly.
It's a rally. There's the mines. It's on the bridge. MN3 is cut off from the rest. And there is the finish. A great pile drive and cohesion from the Dragons to isolate and execute. This is what they needed to do. And the Dragons, they rob the victory potentially away. Taking it back 54 meters and now growing with 20 seconds remaining. The Fusion will have rally. They have respawn advantage. They have a chance to kill Fate here, but he finds cover and he's Discord orbed and he gets out scot-free.
It would have to be a overtime turnaround for this one, Lemon, but still denied. Is the checkpoint. Zest is taken down. The rally from Fixer allows him to stay alive on the cart for just a second longer.
Oh, and Fusion don't want to be anywhere near this barricade because that means they're going to get flanked from the left, the right, the top, and the bottom, and they're going to find themselves 6 feet under. It's only Fixa, or just a few more members of the Fusion on the cart, and the Dragons not able to finish off the fight. Now overtime into effect. 64 meters to 41 is coming down the last fight.
Aim God here. Once again, can't hold on to the trance for too long, is starting to close the distance on it. 22% away, but Lip almost has an overclock. And we remember in this exact position what happened last time. The bot starts to move away and Fate keeps this bot in place for the moment.
Oh, Fletta's in the back line. He has the pulse bomb. His recall's been used. He has to play a bit safer. Meanwhile, Fury starts to dominate with the grab flux. He finds himself on the high ground with drops. What a read on the coach gun. The pulse bomb into MN3. It's a 5-on-2 for the Dragons. And they could be potentially taking this map. And so it is. 64 to 46. The Dragons will take a map.
The Dragons' comms are getting cleaner. Force out the coach gun. I'm waiting behind with a pulsar in my pocket and a big old evil grin. Shanghai Dragons, their first map of the Mid-Season Madness and their first map against the Philadelphia Fusion in 2022, Lemon. Lip has been a monster on the Sojourn, and now with the overall cohesiveness of plan, the divine purpose that Fate brings to this team, maybe Shanghai are back.
They're back, baby, and all you needed was a ball. A guy named Fate and Fleta, Flate even, as you call it. The flanks were great.
Feta and Flate.
I mean, MN3 did a really good job of trying to mark those flanks. It's just when Fate finally hit those mines on the bridge, that really propelled Dragons into a winning position. Now it's only map 1. Let's not be some map 1 Mirandas. We got a few more to go, so we'll see you guys after the break. Guys, it's historical. We just witnessed the first Shanghai Dragons map win in the midseason qualifiers. We truly are cursed. We saw the first loss of the Valley in the midseason qualifiers. We're seeing the first win from the Dragons. But okay, that's just map 1. And that's when Void was in. Things are changing. Got some substitutions.
Yeah, let's not be map 1 Miranda's, but Fate does now have a 100% win rate in Midseason Madness, so basically unbeatable. On the other side, talking about main tanks, Bellosaria has entered the chat for the Philadelphia Fusion. We weren't expecting to see Fury as we go over to Escort. This is one of the map types where Winston tends to reign supreme, whether it's on Dorado or over on Watchpoint Gibraltar, which should be our destination. Watchpoint Gibraltar, of course, one of the maps where we expect to have some pretty hype battles of the Widowmakers, and MN3 is definitely one of the more powerful Widowmakers we've seen, but just looking at what happened on Colosseo, Lip's aim is warm today, Lemon. When it comes to the flicks, when it came to those rail guns on the Sojourn, Lip is looking scary, baby.
No, he looks scary on the Soldier and the Soldier meta, and I'm not surprised to see him dominate the series. Now, I did just wake up from my coma where I don't remember the Shanghai Dragons playing those first 2 matches. I didn't see it. I don't remember no 0-6 happening, because all I see is Dragons.
That's for Shanghai Shagons.
Oh, of course, little baby dragons. Well, now with a bit of Time Wizard, we've turned into 1000 Dragon, and I think Fate in the lineup has helped a lot. So, but Bellosaria is in, and the last time I saw Fusion, especially on this map with Bellosaria, there was a lot of like indecisiveness when it came to Bellosaria, forcing Zest and MN3 to have to make kind of their own solo plays happen, and I think that's why Zest is a little bit higher on the deaths per 10, because he takes big risks.
Yeah, Zest does take those bigger risks, but also at the same time, Philadelphia Fusion were playing such a slow comp that it was... Zest wasn't able to share the aggro, you know? When Zest went in, everyone could look at Zest and kill him, because Fury was behind on the Sigma, Aim God and Fixer were on this slower double flex support comp, at least until they swapped the Ana over to the Brig, and that meant that they weren't really able to join in with the pressure, and MN3 was on the Ashe, so was obviously playing at range for a while. And Philadelphia Fusion hopefully won't have the same issue now, because Zest will be able to move in alongside Bellosaria, as well as be able to receive those long-range heals from Aim God on the Ana. As for Shanghai Dragons, they're still inside attacker spawn, so this is all subject to change. But if they do end up playing a something like a Sojourn, I'd expect to see Zest get a little bit more aggressive with the help of the Fixer armor packs to try and challenge them out.
And Ziyaki's on the Zen, so that means you gotta think twice about if you want to invest the nano into Zest once that blade comes online, and how you're gonna dance around baiting that ult out. It's like Fusion, we're just getting some poke in. It's always kind of sketchy to present yourself on that initial bridge, because, you know, Bellosaria or even Fate could bring out the Hog and just hook someone in and get that first pick. There's the dive from Bellosaria. He's already Discord Orb. He's got the barrier down too, but Dragons are more in a poke phase right now, and Fate needs to get into position.
So Fate and Fletter, they are going to have much better presence on the cart compared to Philadelphia Fusion, who don't have someone like a Tracer to keep that contested. If you want to move in and fight that, then it generally is going to have to be Zest, as he's the only one who can escape easily. MN3 with an opening pick.
Yeah, getting charged up, diffing Lip, that's a good start, and opening for the Fusion, and jumping right on top of Lee Jae-gong. Izayaki is one, finished up by an Aim God, by an Ana primary fire, of all things. Now Fate is Slappy's Discord Orb. There's a synergy of Fusion to stagger out Dragons even more.
And as Shanghai gets staggered here, Philadelphia Fusion have a chance every single one of these fights to make a decision as to whether they try and crunch in on the cart and get a 5 versus 2 there, or find the less mobile members of Shanghai and Lip, Izayaki and Lee Jae-gong, while Fletter and Fate are pressuring the payload and trying to destroy them before Shanghai can really try and make inroads in the backline. And it seems like Philadelphia are consistently trying to damage Lip first, so that Izayaki and Lee Jae-gong expend resources early.
There's Fate just dominating the high ground, especially with a Hammond with that 36% extra knockback in this patch. You can just whip people off, and that's just immediate high ground for Dragons, and a great position for Lip to be in, especially against MN3, who's going to be on the opposite high ground. Fate is on the low, dancing around. Flutta maybe trying to hunt down MN3, but the supports of this defense are actually in server, and Dragons need to find a way to siege in there. Maybe building up towards some mines, a pulse bomb thrown in there, but without Izayaki. And maybe, depending on how Fusion ult tracks, they might know they have a free Nano Blade with no Transcendence.
One of the great things about that server position as well, super difficult to get in there if you're a Wrecking Ball. Minefield's going to be expensive, Elena. And there's the Blade. Never mind.
And he's going to space. He's
so
floating
no nano?
up there. You'll float too. Yeah, no nano, I guess. And maybe thinking Izayaki at the Transcendence, thinking they probably wanted to Blade first and then nano him after to just go after the Transcendence was over. So either way, Dragons have gotten the point.
Yeah, that was a monumentally bad series of plays there for Philadelphia Fusion. Zest dying that early meant Izayaki didn't even pop the Transcendence.
Well, now that the defense have bad spawns, Dragons are going to try and... I was going to say try and pound them, but then there's a Primal Rage beating them down. Lee Jae-gong's actually been isolated, and he's currently in a corner getting beaten. And Belosria, though, maybe got a bit too greedy because he's still down there, and you see Zest has to finally wake up and go and help him, but... I think both sides lost a bit there, so Fusion are just going to try and get back on top of ship.
This one's getting messy. A truce is called. Quick backing out here from a Shanghai Dragons, but they leave Lip in to try and make sure that space can be controlled and that the entries won't be too heavily taxed by MN3, who takes so much damage. But once the server clock is active, moving in is going to be so difficult for Shanghai.
The defense here of the Fusion. Owning top of ship is going to be important, but it's so difficult to hold that position when Faye can just either pile drive you or boop you off. There's the nano, the counter dive from Belosria. He's in the back. He's already killed Lip, and it's forced out the Transcendence of Izayaki, and that's great for the Fusion. Dragons are left using resources and not being able to take a fight because Fusion just leave.
Forcing out the trance as well as getting the kill, because right there Belosria actually managed to use the Winston shield to block off the healing, and Belosria once again a little bit of a feed, Lemon, a little bit of a feed.
It'd be like that sometimes. There's my analysis. Dragons, though, they're going to take the fight in their own hands by Lip diffing MN3, who was using Overclock, and Lip didn't use his. Now Flood is also pulsing the back. Fusion have had no time to breathe. They are constantly getting engaged on, and that's what the recipe is for the Dragons playing this Hammond. Is why you play the Hammond over the Winston is you can always get in and get out quickly and be constantly engaging. With Flood up by your side, how can you ever lose? The Fusion still cannot live more than 5 seconds without getting staggered. Now they have to stay in their spawn room doors just to be safe.
And the thing is, Shanghai can also make these dives so much more quickly because they're doing 50% or 30% rather more damage to their dive targets thanks to the Discord Orb. Whereas Philadelphia Fusion, because they have no Zenyatta here, Lemon, the damage is less deadly and it can be healed through quite easily by Lee Jae-gon or Izayaki simply giving over resources to keep people alive when Belosria is on top of them.
At least Fusion just need one pick just to stabilize, and they're going after the supports of Lee Jae-gong, Izayaki, who are rallying, and Belosria doesn't have enough damage, and as soon as Faye places the mines to buy space for the supports, Belosria just leaves. So that's amazing for the Fusion, and now they're gonna fight yet again. The rally starts from Fixa. Zest has the pulse bomb. Dragons are trying to play this safe as this rally doesn't end up yielding kind of an aggressive fight for the Fusion as we were expecting. Dragons expected to step up while Zest is on a flank. He misses the pulse. It lands right at the toes of Lee Jae-gong, but at least it scares Izayaki into using Transcendence. So Fusion just keep baiting ults out of the Dragons.
Yeah, but Fusion have used everything here simply to stay alive, and now this means that if they can set up a dive or even a pulse bomb with a power driver, things could fall apart for Philadelphia Fusion bloody quickly. Their closest ult is the Dragon Strike, and that's of limited usefulness right now as well.
Fusion diving in, but Belosria got whip shot. He got whip shot in the back by Lee Jae-gong and was forced to go deeper than Belosria really wanted to go. And everyone falls like dominoes after that. Now the Dragons, minute 20, the last fight for the full cap. Fusion don't have ults. They swap to the Diva, hoping to matrix this, and he swoops in and eats up the pulse bomb that flooded through to spawn. A big play, but Belosria doesn't have mech. There are no tanks for the Fusion at the end of the day. and that's where Dragons are gonna end it where they started, but the DPS of Fusion are kind of popping off. MN3 and Zez have gotten a pick or two each, and now you're only left with 3 members of the Dragons to attack. But Lips on the high ground in a god spot. He's gonna have overclock soon. Bellasaria barely has a shield, and now it's gone. Dragons surely can end it here, and there's Lip unleashing the overclock as soon as the shield is gone, and it's already at 3K, and it's over. 36 seconds for the Dragon completion.
And Shanghai Dragons, they feel no fear of Bellasaria. That all started, like you said, with a boot lemon. Not only the whip shot, but also Fate rolling through from the back, using the speed of the Wrecking Ball and the knockback that it had to knock Bellasaria out of his shield and forward into Lee Jae-gon and Izayaki, who could wrap around him after that and just bully him completely. Continue whip shotting, continue kicking him, taking him away from that shield. And I think we're going to see the knock through here. Yeah, there it is. There's the first, and then knocked up as well, so that he couldn't return to the shield. It's Lip in the highlight, but it's Fate who set it up, and we've got a highlight again, Lemon. Shanghai Dragons. Void went 0-6 when it came to maps, and in the end, it takes a team to tango, but the difference with Fate in is just so clear.
Clear as day. Just how decisive these engages are, how aggressive they can play. They got a lot of ults baited out, and it took them a while to complete C, but a completion is an accomplishment on this map. It is so difficult. Now Fusion have Bellasaria on the hog, and they do this to usually get the hook off the bridge, and maybe even to bully their way through point A, and maybe as a response to the Fate Hammond. I wonder how long this lasts.
Might just be for the initial hook. We have seen Bellasaria play an alarming amount of hogs, so there's a world where this is the reality, but for now it's just a scouting mission, and it's going to be a swap over onto a more dive-heavy or dive-happy composition here for the Philadelphia Fusion. Admittedly now, on the attack, Philadelphia Fusion, AimGod, what's he doing here? What is he cooking?
That was a cool ante from AimGod. Tried to splash it on the wall, but Dragons were too far away, so it didn't have an effect, and they tried to coordinate that with the Bellasaria dive. It did scatter the Dragons, and then Fate just counter-engaged, because meanwhile, Fate has been on the flank this whole time, and found MN3 after he used jump. So really good awareness from the Dragons. Now Fate needs to fade away into the shadows and has no problem doing so. And he squashes AimGod on the way back.
Yep, Fate is just built different when it comes to the Wrecking Ball. And when you're up there brawling against a Brigitte in a tiny room when you don't have AimGod's heals or antis, it's not going to go your way. Every single stagger is claimed by the Shanghai Dragons and turned into juicy ult charge.
Zest.
Philadelphia Fusion.
Do you see him?
I wonder if they might change tactics here to try and play a little bit more for farming the nano boost and then allowing Bellasaria to make a more targeted and powerful engage. But even then, you run the risk of getting knocked back and having your engage completely nullified. And then that entire farming period has been useless.
I was just laughing at the fact that Zest was in Narnia. He's clearly waiting for the dive of Fusion to collapse onto that high ground. It's so important for the Fusion to get that back, force Dragons into server, and then go next. It's a stick from Zest, but Izayaki walks into him, and I think well, Fate also knocked him into it. Either way, Zest is dead, and he waited all that time just for nothing. Fusion don't have supports, they don't have DPS, and they don't have hope, and half their time bank is gone.
Oh, MN3 is also having a bad time thus far on the Hanzo. We are 2 minutes in, and he is 61% to Dragon Strike. You've heard of the AKM Blade, but the MN3 Dragon Strike is looking to be potentially a contender. If he carries this on, it's basically passive ult charge at the moment, Lemon. And Shanghai Dragons, they haven't had to use anything. There it is. MN3 finally hits a headshot, a couple of bounces as Lip is taken away. But Shanghai Dragons, they can still dip into the treasure trove. The armory remains stacked with 5 ultimates good to go and a stick will open.
Ooh, that's pretty sick. That's an opening for the Dragons, and Izayaki got pounded before he could use the Transcendence, but Fate will lay the mines, pave the road for the cart, or at least try and own that real estate back. And Fusion, well, they're on the high ground, but now they're trapped. Bellasaria's gonna dive past the mines, blow them up a little bit, gets nanoed by AimGod, is gonna try and live as much as he can into this back line. Lips on one side, Izayaki's on the other, and this Transcendence might have to come out, but with Bellasaria gone, I don't think Fusion have much of a push left.
There's no space to really work with, and Lip's got an overclock that simply looks too dangerous to stick around with. Izzyaki will fall, so now damage taken might well be permanent. MN3's getting frisky with the dive on in, but the combined arms fight, here we go. Here we go, Belosria has gone Roadhog. It's time, Lemon. This is what Belosria does when he's really annoyed with a Wrecking Ball. And fair to say, Fate has been a pretty annoying lad over the last couple of fights.
Yeah, I'd love if I'd love if Aim God didn't frontline over the Hog. That's just what I'm saying. But Belosria also hasn't gotten a hook, and then the post bomb flings into his backline. So this is not fun for Fusion fans. I'm so sorry. DM me if you need anything. You know, if you want a shoulder to cry on, it's okay.
One like equals one prey.
Yeah.
Okay, spawn camping at the moment. Lip still has a fully charged rail. Will Aim God survive the attention is the question. Can anyone even touch? It is going to be Belosria, I think, who's managed to make it on the Wrecking Ball.
Ooh, just
and there
barely.
it is, Zest has touched.
Zest is already forced to use Recall. He doesn't have a mini pack. He's going to try and fade into the shadows, but Fleta has the blinks, and he has the flicks. And Fusion, they only have a rally, and it's a 4-on-5. How are they going to pull this through? They have to go to the end of the map, and if this part is difficult, I don't want to see what they can do on point B, because that's even harder. Fusion have no supports, and this fight is just done. Belosria is going to just drive away from the card, and Dragons are going to go to series point.
Dragons have finally found their identity, Lemon, and it's an identity that works. The dives of Fate and Fleta together are overwhelming. Philadelphia Fusion outpaced at every turn. They can't buy a fight that's working with their own game plan here. And it seems like Fate really is the secret sauce when it comes to the calls, the setups, the attention that he demands, making Belosria swap over to the Roadhog. And admittedly, Philadelphia Fusion were scrambling for answers that they simply did not have.
You know what's funny is Zest actually out-damaged Fleta's Tracer by like 3k, but Lip just dominated this lobby because he gets to sit back and snipe away. There were some moments where MN3 would get a pick, there were some moments where Zest would get a pulse bomb, but it's just the lack of cohesion from the Fusion, and then the Hog. Like, if your Ana of Aim God has to walk in front of you because they know how to take space more than your tank does, there's a problem. But we got 99 problems. We got one more map to go. We'll see you guys after this break. All right, listen, I know I said this wasn't going to be a 9-0 day, but we're one map away from having the quickest Overwatch League stream of all time. The Dragons are up 2-0. At least it's on a good foot for them because they hadn't won a map up until this point, so we're a little bit cursed, but so are the Fusion. But they will be substituting a new tank in to see if that turns their chances around.
Yes, once again, Lemon, the merry-go-round of tanks spin. Belos Rear has been thrown off by the centripetal force, and in goes Fury to dive in and try and keep this spinning around. But at the moment, Philadelphia Fusion were in a little bit of a tailspin. We saw problems with hitting the sleep onto Fate. At the moment, you could consider that maybe Fate might be a little bit telegraphed when going for these pile drivers, but one of the things I want to take your eyes back to was actually the first fight on Coliseum, where we saw Fate just randomly swinging around that central pillar for a good amount of time, and I think that Fate might have actually been doing that to try and condition, or maybe even decondition, the expectation of how a Wrecking Ball takes an engagement so that it's harder to predict when the pile driver is going to come through and when to invest the sleep onto Fate and therefore make those engagements a lot harder to shut down. Fate's an incredibly intelligent player, and Philadelphia Fusion thus far have not found a way to deliver the Ana CC reliably to it.
And I think there's just a lot of poke going into Aim God so that when the pile drive does come from Fate, it's just an insta-kill at that point, so there is no response to the sleep, because Ana players will usually wait, not sleep during the pile drive, but rather kind of once the CC is cooled down. But also just the concept of dive v dive of Belos Ria versus Fate is that Belos Ria would get nanoed. He'd jump towards MN3. He would go after the supports, but not get the kills. And then realize that, well, they're out-rotating him, and he turns around, and Fate is getting value quicker on the Hammond because he's killing Aim God and Fix every fight, and then Belos Ria has no one to help him out. So it's just the better execution of dive from Dragons and a new look from them having Fate in, and now he's on the Doomfist when it comes to Kings Row defense.
Alright, a Doom Fate alert. This is brand new. This is interesting. Fate's already having a bit of a laugh, and here, if he goes up against Fury on the Zarya, the frontline battle might not be too easy here for Fate, but potentially could be able to circumnavigate Fury and get onto that backline. Alas here, Fusion with the double flag support, this is essentially designed to try and shut down a Doomfist with the sleep and the harassment that you can get with the Discord Orb onto a Doomfist who has no real way of cleansing that. Bloody hell, Lip. Mind out.
He's about to mess around and find out. And I like that Fury's on the Zarya. You're just going to bubble Zest. Maybe MN3 if it feels like going up in there. But I think MN3 is more on babysitting duty, making sure Aim God and Fix are good to go. And look at the execution on the dives. Fusion looking pretty good in that first fight.
DJ gone here. On the Lucio. Okay, it might fit in a little bit better with the Winston here, just being able to ferry him around. I think that the Lucio has some limited usefulness when alongside the Doomfist, as he's already so fast and can generally weave in and out of engagements as he pleases. And remember that here, Fate's going to be under significant pressure from that Discord Orb, combined with Fury here on the D.Va. This is all about bullying out that Winston. There's so much frontline damage from the Zen, D.Va, and Genji bullying out Fate, who's going to need huge amounts of support here. Basically, Izayaki permanently pocketing him.
Yeah, we've seen this even in the Western region too, of just the D.Va's going to step into the Winston bubble just to put those micro missiles all up in his jaw, and then make sure that the Winston jumps out immediately and doesn't overstay his welcome. So look how quickly Fate is disengaging. Now he's got the anti on him. This could be a window for Fusion to engage, but Fate quickly hops out, which means Dragons are giving up a lot of space. Now Fusion round the corner, and it's up to building that Nano Blade, where Lee Jae-gon is very far from a barrier.
Dragons have to pick their moment here to try and make an engagement work, but Fixer just keeps hitting bardic grenades and forcing Fate back even further. Shanghai need to get onto this immobile backline, and getting rid of MN3 is a great way to start it. Now there's one less thing to knock back Fate.
Yep, that's Dragons up 5-4. And not really being too aggro. Fate, though, now nanoed, and that's a play from Fixer. Walks in and sleeps it. Transcendence to help, to maybe help Fixer rotate back to safety, but the pulse bomb will obviously burn through that right quick. So Fusion get nothing out of that.
I wonder if Aim God there didn't trust Fixer to hit the sleep, because I'm not sure how much value was really gained out of a Transcendence after there was already a sleep there, and of course Fleta hitting a huge Pulse Bomb, which did the burst damage and got through the Transcendence anyway. Zest prepared for the Nano Blade, and Li Jaegon is just a couple of percentage points away from the sound barrier. He's going to be the primary target here.
Overclock on the high ground from Lip, and Zest is quick to go and just out-pressure that. MN3 is just like back against the wall, like, help me. And Fury's like, I'm on it, boy. I'm bursting this Fate guy bubble, and Fate is 99% on Primal, and oh, he still gets out, so that's chill. Fusion, though, they got a first pick. Li Jaegon out of the picture. This could be a free blade for Zest if it feels like investing it now while the barrier's out of the picture, but Fury is without a mech. But maybe Zest could lead that charge, especially Lips overstaying his welcome on that corner with no one else there. Fusion don't need to invest right now.
You can see Fleta at the moment playing around in those upper hallways. Fate's actually made a bisection here. This is a great dive.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Zest Blade, but you're going to have to wait another fight, Fusion fans, because Fixa is dead, and so is MN3. So pretty neat Primal from Fate, and a good response by Fleta, who continues to live in the backline rent-free, it seems.
Ooh, good response from Fury. World Championship Diva certainly is. The peel is strong for Aim God, that allows him to survive and get this Transcendence. And Zest even catches out Fleta on their disengagement route. And now Shanghai Dragons might have to actually scurry away for a while and wait for Fleta to return so someone can back up Fate's dives.
All Dragons feel they want to fight, and they nano Fate just to kind of stabilize on the cart, because Fusion were just out-tempoing them like crazy. Fusion were able to fight back, which is a different story than how how Gibraltar went. Felt like Fusion were getting staggered every fight, and now they're kind of doing that to the Dragons, where the Dragons at least invest, so they're not afraid to take a 4-on-5 fight if it means just slowing down with the Fusion half cooked up. But now the Dragons have disengaged. They'll have a sound barrier, and they're probably holding this for the Zest Blade. And then he's had this for a while. There's the sound barrier, and Aim God just has to make sure the Fusion lives so that Zest can blade. Now that the barrier is gone, the Fusion only have a few more meters to go. They're going to maybe try and push this in without ults, but the Overclock has been unleashed, and Lip has already killed Aim God. Fusion thought they could do this without expending as much, and now they're paying the ultimate price.
Philly have made a little bit of a habit of underinvesting in some key fights here, Lemon, and this might be one of the ones that they come to regret. Alas, Fate right now messing with the backline of the Philadelphia Fusion. A return to the cart, and Zest is already so low, needs to be topped up before he even considers blading.
Knock, knock, it's Fate in your backline. Zest trying to swipe through them, but mainly get himself in a safer spot, more towards his supports. Right now, it's a 4-on-4, and in the backline is Fleta, also harassing and also stopping the reinforcements of the Fusion. He's just been a menace. He's close to the pulse bomb. There's the bubble from Fate. He's been nano too. He has a primal, and he's already stomped 2 people. The Fusion are trying to run, and they can't afford to die anymore. Look at this primal juggle. It puts Zest into enemy fire, and it's more staggers for the Dragons, and so crucial because Fusion now only have 30 seconds left, and they don't have Fury's mech.
World famous Lip Sombra returns to the forefront. Shanghai Dragons, they've upped the pace. They've got so fast. Philadelphia Fusion, yes, they want a blade, but they can't keep all 5 members alive to make it work. Fury swaps over onto the Xayah. This is just about making sure that Zest can survive a second longer while blading, or even get to the cart.
Someone has to touch from the Fusion, and it looks like MN3 is trying to go forward, Fixa with the rally. They don't have the speed, and it looks like MN3 managed to get there in time. Through the fire, through the flames, the Fusion carry on, and they're about to cap, and it was up to Fleta to touch, and Dragons needed to cycle through, but Fate got pushed off. Dragons fought a little too hard on the flank, and Fusion just bulldozed their way to the cart and somehow won point B.
A swap there to the Xayah. Intelligent. This is very good once you get into the midst of these fights. Very difficult for Fate to survive very long against the Xayah if she's able to build up the energy, and you can usually absorb a lot of damage with those bubbles simply by being able to give them over to the primary target of these dives and mess with the timing of the Dragons.
Ooh, an EMP from Lip, but it's gone. Transcendence. Sucks to suck. MN3 though has got an overclock. try and burst through the Dragons. Lee Jae-gon, Fate, Lip fall immediately, and Fusion have a lot of wind in their sails. 45 seconds and the end of C in their sights.
Izayaki here desperately needs to keep getting healing. Maybe Fate can catch a little bit more, get that nano over onto the Winston so he's got some staying power on the car. An instant engagement.
I thought Fate was getting flailed off the cart, but I think Fleta was there to stop the final push, but there's just no cart presence. Fusion have so much damage, and 27 seconds is all that Fusion have, but a finish is a finish.
And that was a bloody fast ending there. 2 Kings row. It took them a minute and 3 seconds, Lemon, to push through point C. This is where we see teams get caught up for 5 minutes, plus Shanghai Dragons fell apart once they could no longer be the arbiters of the tempo. Philadelphia Fusion, they finally were able to, as they say in interviews, play their own game, and that's about playing faster, finding the openings, forcing the issue onto Shanghai Dragons by investing ultimates, which Zest finally did with the Blade on point B and cracked open Shanghai Dragons. The thing was, with Philadelphia Fusion, because they were continually looking for the optimal way to use the Blade so that it couldn't be countered, so that it was guaranteed kills, it meant that Shanghai were always feeling like there wasn't a huge amount of pressure. They weren't going to be under pressure until Zest used that Blade, and so they could dive at their leisure. Fate and Fleta could just weave into the backline and start messing with the Fusion so that they couldn't adequately support that Blade.
Now this next attack, I mean, the Dragons can beat that time. We've seen it do it before, back when the Dragons were good in the, kickoff clash qualifiers. But hey, it's a new age now that you have Fade in. I mean, look at that. They got 2 more maps now that he's in. It's the Doomfist to start. Oh my god. Lip? Okay. Player of the match. I'm calling it. Now Fate's on the ball, and Dragons say, let's go. Pedal to the metal on the high ground. Gonna drive by Fury. We're just gonna sit on the point. Now the Fusion, they're the ones that have to react. Actually, Dragons are not even capping. Fate was more exploring the high ground, making MN3 uncomfortable, not really fully committing to that. Fleta's on the left in Hotel. Lip hoping to maybe jump up to this high ground, maybe charge up off Fury. Fury got slept. Doesn't look that much. That did really much. As Dragons, they could go to point. I don't really see anyone there from the defense to stop them.
Yeah, the thing is here, Lemon, the crossfires are going to be brutal when you think about how much damage Aim God Fixer and MN3 can do to someone with no cover. They can at least stay in the ball form to avoid being headshot, but really, Fury needs to be dislodged from this high ground position, and that's what the movement from Shanghai Dragons is.
There's just too many pins in the way, Fate. I know you're a big old bowling ball, but you're going to get bullied if you're not careful. He goes to the other side, and Dragons fight from the front, but MN3 still stands tall over his opposition of the Sojourn. Aimgod's got the Discord Orb on Lee Jae-gon. He's dangerously low, and that's not someone that Dragons can afford to lose. And Lee Jae-gon is just separated away from the Flog. Looks like he's able to get back to safety. No, he's still in that room, and Fate's going to help him out.
Fleta swapping over now onto the Trace to try and add a little bit more pressure to these initial dives and make sure that Fury can't stay here for free, because at the moment there's so much healing coming from Fixer that Fury can stay here essentially forever. He's not going to be out-damaged unless Izayaki can somehow sneak on a charge shot or a Discord Orb, but Fury's playing in a very reserved position, and that's why Fleta has to invest a huge amount of time now to wrap around the back and have access to Fury and, of course, MN3, who is checking very fastidiously for that Tracer.
We got people fighting on point B when the point hasn't even been unlocked. I don't even know what to say. Like, Dragons, I feel like they're just looking for an engage when sometimes you can just go to the point and force the other team to engage you, and that's a recipe to force a reaction. As Dragons finally realize that, they're trying to keep Lee Jae-gon, though, who has, like I said, a paper mache for a shield. He cannot sustain himself and he's doing a good job of cycling in and out. Fate is there for a crumb of objective time. Almost the second tick for the Dragons. There's the Matrix from the defense. It's in the back right where Fixa is, and MN3 is going to take advantage, but they don't have anyone to really poke down because Dragons are hiding away. But because Dragons are hiding away, they're not really getting much point presence. So Fusion are now poking them down. So Dragons are neither killing anything or getting the point. So this is kind of messed up.
Yeah, the cap on the point is just so difficult with the amount of damage that Philadelphia Fusion have for free. And it was Fate and Lee Jae-gon who just sort of like did a do-si-do to keep contesting that point and building up towards that final tick, which is about to come through when Zest moves on down. And now Zest can contest this point super vigorously using that blade in melee range.
Oh, the Mind's right up top of Fixa. He drops the immortality. Does he even live through it? It sounds like he does, and Zest might have wished that he had some living power of his own. The blade just exploded. Dragons, meanwhile, they place the mines on the point. Guess what happens when you step on the point? You cap it. So good job, Dragons. They got the card unlocked.
I'm sort of surprised that MGod didn't invest for Transcendence there and what could have been the make or break fight for the Shanghai Dragons. Alas, MGod holding it for a different ultimate. I'm not entirely sure which one. Maybe just an aggressive engagement to try and keep Fury alive when there's a huge amount of damage coming forth. One of the things I want to point out that Philadelphia Fusion did really well is that MN3 put his Disruptor field on top of a Dove Fixer so that it would burn through a huge amount of the mines that Fate put down. Alas, Shanghai Dragons, when everyone came down to equal footing on the point, they could simply brawl out better with greater target focus because of how mobile their comp is.
Well, they saw Zest just, you know, explode in his last blade, and they're like, well, we'll help you out. And Fleta, you're on top of him! How does that pulse miss, man? It's okay. You got the Transcendence out. There's the silver lining, but the Overclock will burst through all of that. Lip's already got one and a second, and Fury's last on the hit list. There's the backhand to Zest, and a fight win for the Dragons.
Forcing out a less than ideal engage there from a Philadelphia Fusion, and now MGod's moved over from the Zenyatta back onto this Ana. We saw that the same thing happen for the Los Angeles Valiant, where they really need to try and keep their Xayah sustained, so they went over to the better point healing, better single target burst healing that Ana can provide, as well as the playmaking potential of the Anti, but it's still going to be so vulnerable to the dives of Fate and Fleta. Can they even touch before this caps? No. 3 minutes, Lemon, for 70 meters in a series.
And Fury tried to go and touch that, and now he's in the worst position ever, and he doesn't have the speed to disengage, and Zarya can be punished so bad without bubbles and in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And this is where the Dragons, they can have a big momentum push. Fate stays alive, which is important. Dragons haven't lost anyone up until this point. Zest slices through Lip, and this could be a fight for the high ground. Zest denies that from Lip and might have bought Fusion some time.
Fusion needs to try and make an earlier engage here, though. They can't afford to fight in the last possible space because they would get mined off of it. Alas, Fate has used the mines already just to buy this corner here. And this may well mean that MN3 can use the overclock from quite a safe position when Shanghai Dragons are forced to move down this final straight without a huge amount of cover.
Oh, you see the back line is low, and Zest is thinking about the Dragon Blade, but he's seeing the Transcendence, and this could be freelo for Zest, but his MN3 is like, I got this. Chill out. Let me use the overclock, and then your plan B, aight, buddy? And, well, MN3's gotten 1 kill, but it's fine, because Dragons are leaving. They lost Lee gone, and you don't win this fight with only Izayaki. Still a minute 45 for Dragons to make this work.
Forcing a Transult there was the golden ticket as well. Izayaki no longer has the counter to the Nano Blade that Shanghai Dragons were counting upon, and it might be that Shanghai Dragons, with 1 minute and 30 left, might be forced to just wipe to the Nano Blade and then go again afterwards.
There is the Zest Blade. Lee Jae-gon, does he use the rally? Well, Zest is on the high ground. There ain't no helping Lip up there. Lee Jae-gon says that's a you problem. Lee Jae-gon is also very far out of range. Fate and Fleta hoping to take control of Megapack's side, but Dragons don't want to risk getting picked off again.
Nano not given over because Zest said, hey, I can just solo Lip up here and that will win us the fight. If they don't have Lip, they do not win. And now Fury, if he has energy, he could be the recipient of this Nano and be an absolute bruiser in the front line. Oh,
good bubble on MN3 to save him from Fleta. 52 seconds. It's Fusion that pulled the trigger first just for the rally to make sure Zest is safe and, you know, more cushion so he can push the high ground. He's gotten nanoed. He got bubbled. Now Zest is just hanging out. The grab is thrown from Fury and it gets 0 people. Hey, but that's a zoning grab as the kids call it in Plat. So it looks like Dragons are still going to leave though because they don't have Lee Jae-gon.
zoning Grav and a zoning Zyra as well. Fury so far forward, and Aim God's come to join them. With only 23 seconds remaining, Fate will finally lose his life, and Shanghai Dragons, they invested the rally in that previous fight, the overclock as well, so Flutter's moving over in an emergency onto the Echo with the pocket from a Mercy. They've decided that everything is about Fletter. All of the eggs are in the Fletter basket. If MN3 hits a headshot onto either Ligegon or Fletter, this could be dead in the water, Lemon.
Yeah, and MN3 sees that swap, goes immediately to Widow, and he can play at the back of point. It's going to be hard for Dragons to access that unless Fate fully commits to it. Flutter, though, is going to try and stay out of line of sight. MN3 is hunting. There's the pressure from Fate just to make MN3 uncomfortable. You start off with a kill if you're the Dragons. It's a 5-on-4. MN3 is collapsed on. No damage at all remaining from the fusion, and no ultimates either. Dragons complete the map. It's a little bit slower than the fusion, but a cap's a cap. We go again.
A cap is indeed a cap, Lemon. Shanghai Dragons losing out so much time on the first point where they simply could not find a way to just remove Philadelphia Fusion from the multiple arrow slits they were firing from. The Ballista Ray. They were manned with the Longbowmen. And the Longbowmen were hitting pay dirt so often that Shanghai Dragons just had to eventually scramble into a last-ditch battle for the point. And you kept saying we need to try and play the point, get Philadelphia Fusion to come down to them. But only after about 3.5 minutes did that become the reality. Philadelphia Fusion, for the first time in a while, feel like they're playing with an advantage. And hopefully this time on the defense, they won't test lip sniping skills on that initial pick.
Yeah, Dragons just lost so much time on that point. Everything else just looked pretty easy. And it's because I had already mentioned during that whole point engagement that they were trying to win a fight that Fusion were just running from. Like, there were people just flanking at point B when the point wasn't even capped. And I think that was just a miscommunication between who should be on the point, because if Fate is just going to not want to be out in the open, then it should be up to Flutta or Ligegon a little bit to trade that out. But Flutta was just so deep on the flank that he didn't want to be on the point. So now you got 1 minute for the Dragons. They'll be attacking first.
Alright, once more, lip sees if anyone's feeling lucky. And this point is a swap over. Oh, goodness. Shanghai Dragons, they're looking to try and get a bounce of the Bardic Grenade behind Fury here and then make a full-on dive onto him. But Ligegon, I'm not sure if that was entirely the shield bash that he wanted, but it's okay. He's managed to at least cover some distance and maybe crunch up onto high ground. Shanghai here. Remember, they only have 30 seconds, so this is all or nothing on the crunch.
Oh, he just heard where that Zen is coming from. Does he want to go after MN3? Does he want to go after Aim God? Flutta, they're going to be tasting some a kick, though, because Zen will kick you away. Flutta's like, okay, well, Fate is doing something. I'm going to look at what Fate's up to. Fate's discorded, almost died, and now their Dragons had a minute. They're left with 10 seconds. They spent their entire time positioning. Now this has to work out. Ligegon is getting harassed by Fury. Fate has to dive top right just to help him out. He disengages at 70 HP. Flutta takes over as a distraction. Dragons are on the point. They at least get a tick. This makes it winnable. The accretion of Fate onto Fate almost claims his life, but Fletta going up into the windows finally finds his opportunity to deflect Aim God and all the damage right back into his face and kill MN3. What a dub from Fletta. That will be Dragons with the card unlocked.
Oh, flashes of Lux. That reminds me of the old Flutta Genji, and it was bloody clean there. Getting the reflect onto Aim God instantly into a headshot as well, and the dash. It was well placed as well to make sure that maximum damage left Aim God low. Shanghai Dragons have taken first point so much faster than they did previously. I remember Philadelphia Fusion, they had real trouble moving through this next point, or at least as a defensive force. They actually moved Fury over to the Xayah last time. This time Fury stakes with a Sigma because he's so close to the Gravitic Flux, hoping to take people, pluck them off that point, and maybe even force a C9 using the Flux.
But the win con for Dragons is Nano Fate. They're going to get as much cart distance as they can, and Fusion are the ones that have to contest, and it's tough because Fury doesn't really want to get that close, especially with Flutta and Lip. There's the Nano. Fate is in the back, goes immediately after Aim God. Fury is slipped, and he's bursted. He's not allowed to use the Grab Flux, and Dragons have a monumental push ahead of them, still with 2 DPS ults in the bank.
And that DPS ult, I want to see the Muse overclock from Lip first. Force out Aim God's trance if he's able to get it, and then follow it up with the Blade afterwards. Fury still has this Gravitic Flux to play with, and yes, there's not much to answer it, but Shanghai Dragons are doing a fantastic job of controlling the tempo. When faces are shown, they're taken right off. Fleta headshot too far forward, and now Fate's had to make a disengagement into a disastrous territory.
And it's still overtime. Dragons have to fight this 4v5. There's Fury's grab flux. It focuses down Fate. It gets them low, but Fusion didn't pop the bubble, and they were playing far back because he got anti by Izayaki. Lip has killed 2, and this is the performance you needed him to have. The Dragons are looking outstanding with him on the Sojourn.
And it's not the Blade of Fleta Lemon, it's the implication of the Blade. That keeps Aim God holding on to that trance. Does not use it here. Fury moves over now onto Azaya. This is better to defend from the Blade that Fleta has if it's somehow not countered by the Transcendence. Izayaki looking for a cheeky early.
And Fleta has the Blade! And Izayaki was throwing a nade, maybe trying to set up with him. Aim God's forced to use Transcendence. Fleta is still safe. It's a 5-on-4 for the Dragons, but no ults remain. It's up to MN3's overclock to go big, and so it does. He jumps and snipes 3 and gets Dragons off the court. They were mid-dive, but who expects with a 1-minute time bank for the Dragons to get this far? This is looking like a 3-0 unless Fusion pull out a miracle.
Iteration, 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 Lemon. Shanghai Dragons learn from their mistakes on first point, and they took a more vertically inclined comp that could get in there and brawl using the Winston and the Genji so they could get on top of these snipers who were playing from the arrow slits. And here's Lip just popping off as he has done all series long to guarantee more distance for the Shanghai Dragons. For the Philadelphia Fusion, it is bad news after bad news being delivered to their doorstep. But this series is not yet over.
It's been a bit of a diff to Lip. 32 eliminations, 1/3 of his team's damage at 16k. Lip is having some of the best Overwatch we've seen in the mid-season madness, and I could watch him all day. Now, Dragons are on the defense. Fusion only have a minute and a half. Dragons took all of that time just to rotate, and it comes down to usually one fight, and it's Fury out on the Zarya.
Fury Zarya here, looking to try and at least in it. Oh, hello, the MN3 Reaper. The time capsule composition, Lemon, from the kickoff clash has returned. No Soldier this time, the May instead. Philadelphia Fusion, they might try and out-rotate Fate here, but I'm sure that Fate just is not going to try and make an early engagement. Instead, just use that new Tesla coil that Winston has in Overwatch 2 to poke away.
Oh, Aim God is low. Fusion cannot lose him. Flood is just so comfortable in the back. Dragons are just playing the haha you can't touch me. They're just standing on top of the statue, but finally Fate drops down in range of the Reaper, and Izayaki couldn't heal it up. Fusion, now the Fury's sleeping, but he's sleeping exactly where he wants to be, right on the point. It's the Dragons that are flanking away, and they don't want to get too close because MN3 is deadly at close range, and the picks continue for the Fusion. They've gotten 2 ticks. At this point, whoever's left from the Dragons needs to just go die on point.
Philadelphia Fusion playing an old classic of King's Row, a little bit of the rush, but remember, Lemon, the power of this rush is going to be heavily limited when overtime gets into effect, because it means that Philadelphia Fusion, they're either going to have to choose to leave one person on the cart or try and brawl on the cart itself and allow Shanghai Dragons extended poke phase, which they desperately want to build up both the overclock and the nano, so Fate can try and engage without being instantly run over by the Reaper.
Yeah, this anti-Winston comp from the Fusion is looking sick. Let's see how the Nano from Aim God, who will it be delivered to? MN3 or Fury for the frontline sustain? It could be about who has the better opportunity. Not seeing too many flanks from MN3 because it's just playing from front to back. Now Dragons, they start the dive, and Aim God's been low, and Lip was able to get the snipe. There's so little healing from Fusion remaining, and Fixit doesn't have the sound barrier. He's 3% away, and he needed it a few seconds ago. Overtime goes away, and Dragons strike through the hearts of the Fusion and take the series 3-0.
A beautiful crunch chosen there, Lemon, in the narrow streets where they knew that the payload provided optimal cover so that Fate could be on one side of it attacking the support and that there wouldn't be as much coverage for DPS to be able to freely rain through damage onto him because there was that large bit of cover in the middle between him and the danger zone. Shanghai Dragons understanding the assignment for the fight and working around the anti-Winston comp so incredibly well, utilizing the speed of Lee Jae-gon as well to catch Fusion by surprise.
So they did. I mean, Fusion tried to catch them by surprise with a cheeky little Reaper comp, but just eventually Fate was like, I'm going to go behind them. And just before AimGod could even realize it, he was dead. Just great coordination by Shanghai Dragons on the dive. Finally figuring out a composition that works for them. And there was one player who had an outstanding performance. I already pointed out his statistics. I had my magic ball. I knew who it was going to be. Your player of the match, of course, is Lip from the Shanghai Dragons.
The orbs have been pondered and the orb screams that Lip is the one. A highlight reel of epic proportions when it came to flick after flick, be it Sojourn, Widowmaker or any other hero. Lip has finally found his groove on the hero du jour of the mid-season madness. It's been all about the Sojourn for so many teams, and finally Lip is once again showing himself to be a top hit scan no matter the hero. And I think that today Shanghai Dragons became a lot more fearsome in this particular meta. Lemon, they've brought in Fate. Lip's found his groove. No more are they the 0-16.
I just loved what Lip did, especially on Colosseo. I think he was the main reason why Fusion could never get a lead, because Lip's presence on the high ground, how he was constantly killing AimGod and Fixa, his overclock efficiency out of this world, and he knows exactly also when to use his jump. He's not jumping in to get a first pick. He jumps in after he gets that first pick, and every fight when he has the overclock, it's 2, 3, 4. I've worn out my vocal cords just talking over this guy because he performed. Look at the numbers, 34,000 damage. You ain't seeing numbers like that from nobody else. And the Dragons fans can start smiling because now they can start climbing back into a position where they can get to the mid-season madness and prove that just because you have a rough start doesn't mean it can be a rough ending.
Almost half of the kills that Lip partook in as well, half the Elimsi partook in, were his final blows. So really good finishing power from Lip as well, because sometimes you just got to be the one who can find the closures on those kills. And of course, Fate managed to come in as well, Lemon. It had been all void up to now in the mid-season madness, and it's a risk to move away from what you were playing. But to be fair, like, what have you gained that you're going to be venturing away with that? It was 0-6 and somehow Fate comes in. It might be the calling that's a little bit better. The engagements are a touch cleaner and it works out as a 3-0. The return of the Fate magic has definitely heralded a little bit more space and a little bit more power for Lip to use in tandem so that he can relax a little bit more, take his time, line up the shots and put them in the exact right position.
And Fusion, I think they just need to figure out their tank situation about how to coordinate with them. Because Overwatch is a team-based game. You could have 5 gods on your team, 5 individuals, but this game is about talking to each other and coordinating. And you saw how the Shanghai Dragons, didn't matter if there was a Reaper, a Mei, or whoever, who Megalol in their face, the dive can still work against the Reaper comp if you know how to coordinate. So with the win, Dragons will keep their spot in the mid-season qualifiers. I think they'll be around 3rd place. With the loss, Fusion will concede their 4th place spot to the Chengdu Hunters. I'd have to double check, but those are what the standings look like now, as Chengdu's 5-5 and Philly are 4-5. There are still a few more matches to go, but not a ton of opportunities, so only 4 teams move on to mid-season madness, and Shanghai Dragons might have found the solution to their problems. So that'll be the end of our APAC show today, but we also have North America that's starting pretty soon. I know our North Americans are waking up. We're gonna have the Vancouver Titans versus the Shock, Glads versus Washington, and Paris versus Toronto. Is gonna be a good day. Happy belated Canada Day, by the way, for all you Toronto fans who are going to be tuning in later. That was Leg Day. I'm Lemon Kiwi. Shout out to Achilleos and Avril that held it down at the start of the show. We'll see you in a few hours for the continuation of North America.